Okay, switch over to working. Increase the sensitivity a little bit so my character actually talks when I'm talking. Oop, oh, I want to close that. I do want to open up my thing. Okay, so now that I have everything set up, I am Silent, or Ukakisa, a political philosopher and ethicist.
And Loki, like history and alternate history.
We are continuing our Sliders series. This episode is on, or this one is about the episode Time Again and World, which could broadly be described as fascist America. The episode starts about the Sliders are in some world, and the different notable difference that we know of here is that everybody on this world is seems to be generally capable of growing beards and mustaches and just, I guess, facial hair in general. They're about 2 weeks into their slide. The professor is upset, and cue ball is missing. But the professor is upset at cue ball because the professor seems to be like missing his life on his regular world. He says the phrase "in vino veritas," which is amusing solely because a couple episodes, or at some point later, there is an episode titled "in dino veritas," and I just like that. In Wine Truth, Rembrandt believes, or then it establishes that Rembrandt believes in God and God's will.
I do find it interesting that Rembrandt's running damage control Arturo now. Rembrandt's, I guess, to an extent, reconciled with Quinn, but for the longest time he was the voice of this is all your fault, and so, you know.
Yeah. So a bunch of things happen. I don't want to go through all of them because they're very minor. It's only notable because it happens later exactly again. A car crashes. One of the guys kills from the car crash, shoots the other one. Judge Nassau is killed in this world. His dying breath is Elsie the Rock 5'4". At this point, we have no idea what this means. Rembrandt indicates he's okay with mustaches on women, but not beards. And he doesn't like how close it is to time to slide, and the group's still separated. Wade and Cue Ball are running from really far away over to the portal when it's opened. Obviously, they get there in time. I guess we'll stop there as we normally do. Koki, what do you think of this world?
So, you would think that the point of divergence is biological rather than political. However, if we're going to assume the conclusions that Arturo made about the other world are correct, and I'm not entirely sure we should, but I don't really have a good counter argument. Then, as we learn in the other world, J. Edgar Hoover was president, started a dictatorial regime.
Oh, I mean, we're going to.
I'm talking about this world. I'm talking about this world.
Okay.
And we're led to assume that these worlds are roughly similar because the same arrangement happened. It was the
Possibly. They were on this world for multiple weeks. So and they didn't encounter anything approximating the same level of authoritarian, or at least it wasn't notable.
It was an arrangement to meet the same person in the same place with the same content. That content being the U.S. Constitution, and the person being shot by that same police officer. This has the same sort of political environment.
Right, I guess they
Except,
did have that. So
if we live in a dictatorship, I think most people will live normal lives unless we're confronted with people getting shot. And for, most of the 2 weeks, they were not. And so we're going to assume then, if it is in fact a world where, if we're going to assume that one, J. Edgar Hoover was a cross-dresser, which is an unconfirmed rumor, and two, that he would enforce this kind of thing, then we're going to assume that women growing beards is a similar sort of thought, like he couldn't implement men wearing skirts. I feel like making men wear skirts is a lot easier than making women grow beards. But it's a simple matter of this is the same kind of police state that had an abandoned constitution and is enforcing some form of atypical gender expression. Well, atypical for us, it's the law in that world, so I guess atypical would be the wrong word.
it could be a situation where it's similar to the next world, but also has a point of divergence that differs from the other in that women grow or started growing facial hair significantly prior as well, but not much else changed.
Yeah, I suppose that's the thing. The point of divergence is that women can grow ears, and the fact that they are made to by this kind of police state is a separate point of divergence. Like, there were a lot of things that I was trying to think of, like, I know that in the case of Sikhi women that can grow facial hair, kind of just a point of shame for women that, can. For Sikhi women, they're actually encouraged to grow it out, but there are also such small beards that I'm inclined to say that this isn't necessarily an issue of being completely unable to shave them, or not unable to, but unwilling to shave them. I honestly couldn't tell you. I feel like they made a point to make the beards as subtle as possible while still being visibly beards. So that makes me think, yeah, this is some kind of, law in place for, this kind of gender performance. I don't know. This is one of the silly. This is one of the sillier worlds. Do you have any thoughts on this? Because, it genuinely has me at a loss.
Not really, other than that it could be a different world because of the other, I'm not sure my phrasing, other thing that I had noted already.
Yeah, they're biologically capable for years, or?
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
We're assuming this is naturally.
yeah,
Which, bro, I don't want to think that, like, women in this world were all injected with testosterone during puberty. That would be weird, but...
not impossible.
Yeah. Well, considering, like, the weirdness at the next world, which, in many respects, is identical to this one, is, we're kind of left doing that. Like, the gender nonconformity and or no, hyperconformity, but different genders, different gender presentations, I guess I should say, and the dictatorship are both present in both worlds. So we're made to assume they're related.
Yeah, seems fair.
So on that, what about Puerto Rico?
How
Well,
much?
this is a- oh,
Sorry, go on. You might answer my question. You might answer my question. So,
This is after the Spanish American War, even after the Puerto Rican Constitution, I believe. We're not sure when he was elected president, but Puerto Rico's Constitution was set up in the 50s. So it is possible that what Puerto Rico set up makes it largely immune from the laws that are being applied in the States. But the unfortunate reality is that just doesn't necessarily happen, right? Like, the FBI in Puerto Rico, which J. Edgar Hoover is largely weaponizing in both worlds, has enforced things that they could not do in the States and that the Puerto Rican police could not do. The most notable example was killing of Federico Rivas in 2007, I believe. It might have been earlier than that.
who is this?
But he was a leader of the Mancheteros, a Puerto Rican independence movement. It was involved in some bank robberies, police shootings. It was like, don't get me wrong, this is definitely, like, by all accounts, a criminal, even if he was a political one. But the FBI did hit on him basically, and he was unarmed, shot, and left to bleed out.
Oof, not ideal.
There wasn't like a lot of due process that was happening, and so this is not really the kind of thing that. I mean, yes, we hear horror stories about the FBI, but this is just an example. The FBI can get past a lot of red tape in Puerto Rico because of its unique relationship. And so I'm inclined to say that Puerto Rico may be compelled to follow the same rules that are being implemented. Now, granted, is it necessarily J. Edgar Hoover in this world? We don't know. We don't know enough about this world. Clearly, it was a much more subtle form of dictatorship, even though they saw the women in beards, they didn't see, like, how heavy-handed it was enforced.
And the police carrying guns in the middle of the park.
Yeah, and granted, a lot of us don't really see how heavy-handed our society is until we challenge it, right?
Yeah. I guess on the other hand, maybe the people carrying guns in the middle of the park, the sliders could just be so used to, oh, well, odd things are happening, but odd things are always happening, so whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Did it answer your question?
Not really. My question might just be an extremely stupid one, but we'll find out by asking it. What is there any, I don't know, facial hair politics that you are aware of in Puerto Rico?
Not one that's distinguishable from the United States, right? Like, some women do grow an amount of facial hair, and that is seen as not normal. People will be performatively grossed out about it. It's something that people don't like. They don't think it is feminine, and it's the same as the U.S. It's also a minority of women that grow any facial hair at all. So
So it would be just a generically accepted thing. If so, this might also just reveal ignorance. How much do you know about machismo?
Um, I mean, it's one of those things that's kind of in the cultural background, I guess. People use it to talk about like the male chauvinism and patriarchy as it manifests in Latin America, and there are some differences, but I guess I'd have to. I don't know what's it's like what is male chauvinism? What is sexism? It's like
Mm-hmm.
like it's a broad topic. Do you have something more specific?
I just partially curious if uh, being unable to grow facial hair or unwilling would be seen as like a sign of non-masculinity or something.
Oh, weirdly enough, in Puerto Rico, and I suppose Puerto Rico by U.S. metrics is gender non-conforming in some respects. So, facial hair did eventually take off, but at least when we're talking about the time period, it was not very popular at all. So if you couldn't grow like a full facial hair, that was just sort of a pretty normal thing. Actually, in the aughts, it was pretty normal for men to shave their legs or,
Mm.
have work on their eyebrows and stuff, which are seen as very feminine coded in on the mainland. Though to be fair, that also had its detractors in Puerto Rico, where people were like, "This is feminine. Why are we doing this?" And the same energy that people in the aughts in the States would complain about metrosexuals. Except, while people would complain about it, in Puerto Rico, I'd say that overall it was more common.
Mm.
And in the States where it was seen as more of an anomaly. But people would be like, this is gay, or this is, the usual spiel when men are doing something that's not seen as manly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I suppose there is a bit of a difference in that it was more common in Puerto Rico than it was in the mainland. It probably is. I just haven't been to Puerto Rico in a while.
Mm-hmm. And I know next to nothing, so.
Yeah, so it would be kind of weird actually. I mean, granted, in the '90s, facial hair wasn't terribly popular anyway. So, a world where men have women have ears and most men don't is it has its own dynamic, but I don't think Puerto Rico would be unique in this respect.
Mm-hmm.
So, should they stay?
I don't see why not. It seemed like they were just annoyed at the fact that they weren't home. But if they worked on the timer, then they would be able to get home. So
Yeah. Ultimately, this is a world where they didn't brush up against the law and subsequently didn't see how dictatorial it was, other than a cop shooting someone in the middle of the street. But it may not have been clear to them that it was a cop, right? I don't think it took them a bit to notice that in the other world. So ultimately, it's like, hey,
yeah.
this is a bit of a weird world, but we can get the supplies we need.
In the other world, they only noticed it because they moved because the cop was the one who died.
Yeah. So found a more permanent solution back home? Maybe. Maybe. Ultimately, there are a number of reasons why we think this might not be a better home base. I don't know if any of the supplies that Quinn uses for his time machine are illegal. Oh yeah, computers are considerably slower because of censorship. Well, the internet is. I don't know about like. No, yeah, it's computers as well. They banned imports from Japan.
Yeah.
Or at least heavily tariffed it. So actually, yeah, but that was the other world. We don't know about this world, but having the other world as a point of reference, because they are so similar, I'm inclined to say that this would be a bad place to stay. From their point of perspective, I think this would be an adequate sort of place to stay, but ultimately, if I did that, I really regret staying.
Yeah. So if we go entirely based off of what we know for sure that they know at this time period.
Yeah, the answer is no, absolutely. Based on what they know,
Yes.
it's like, it's a weird world, but, ultimately this is adequate for our ends. And, yeah, I'd say that from their perspective, this is a fine world to stay in.
I
From our
would.
perspective,
Yeah.
it's a very bad idea.
Yeah. Assuming that it actually is a carbon copy of the prior world and not just the same appearance of events happening.
Yeah, we don't necessarily know that it was a cop in this world, right?
Yeah.
That still means it's a pretty violent world, and that still means that well, they don't know this, but someone was shot for having a constitution.
Yeah. So they
I
don't know it
suppose
at
the
the.
fact that there was a sudden violent escalation from a traffic accident, it might be reason enough actually to say, hey, we've only been here for 2 weeks. Maybe there's more to it that's actually really violent than we should be. So maybe from their perspective, there is an argument saying, yeah, we should go.
Um. I'd have to basically the same take as well. So then continuing from that world, this is the longer one because this is where the rest of the episode takes place. You slide to a world. Arturo says that Rembrandt seems to purposefully aim at him when they're coming out of the portal for a soft landing. Obviously, this is just a continuation of. I'm kind of fed up with like literally everything. And he's just grumpy. They don't want Wade to be emotionally invested, and she's like, I am invested because I saw somebody die in my hands. All of these same random events are happening again. This, to a degree, to a mild degree, comes up in a later episode when, like, cavemen are ruling the planet. It's they're very adamant that it's not time travel. So to keep that stipulation, I would propose that maybe this world just started, or this universe started a couple of minutes later, and that's why everything is slightly delayed.
Oh yeah, because they said deja vu, like the same people were in the street. I hadn't really thought about that. Like everything happened a couple seconds later, but it's not out of the question.
Um, it's especially notable in the, I don't remember what the name of the episode is at the moment, but the episode wherein Cue Ball meets his younger self because it's the 80s. But continuing, so everything's happening again. The women here do not have facial hair, however. They say that they're here for 36 hours, so what's that, a day and a half? Um, Car crashes again. Guy one has a skirt and he gets out of the car. He's about to shoot the other guy, as happened in the previous world, and Wayne goes, he's got a gun! And guy two instead shoots guy one and kills him, and he flees this time. The first person, the one who was originally going to shoot, informs Wade of the same thing. Elsie, The Rock, 5'4". Police begin investigating. Rembrandt is giving his testimony to the cops. They go back to the Chandler. Fingerprinting is mandatory in this world by order of the San Francisco Police Department. Crap, I can't remember his name. Gomez, the owner of the Chandler, calls the cops. The Sliders don't realize this. He calls the cops after they finish fingerprinting themselves and leaving. Arturo doesn't indicates he doesn't like the Scots, but likes their whiskey. Because Arturo doesn't like anybody who's not his own race and ethnicity, apparently.
This was in the kill conversation. The police officer was wearing some kind of skirt, and they noticed that even popular police media in our timeline features police officers in skirts, which they assume are kilts.
Yes. I guess this is a weird instance. Arturo doesn't like cultures. I'm correcting my prior statement. Doesn't like cultures that aren't the English, it seems. But he is capable of being content with individuals who aren't English. But getting back to it, Q-Ball goes to get ice. I can't remember the exact reason, probably for the whiskey, and is chased back in by a couple of people. I can't remember exactly what they look like. They're cops, though. They tell the Sliders that they should pretend like what occurred in the street never happened, even if other cops ask about it or ask them to identify people.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you said that he called the cops, but in this case, these weren't like, these were. I mean, on one hand, I want to say crooked cops, but they seemed like they were kind of the good guys in that they were trying to get the Constitution out. I know, spoilers.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing from their perspective. It's all weird happenings.
Yeah. But who the hotel people called were, yes, they were technically cops, but he wasn't turning them into the law. He was turning them, he was having essentially two freedom fighters to harass and threaten them.
Yeah. So Rembrandt is the first to start just rapidly, after they say about it, start rapidly putting on his coat and other clothes, and he's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. Everybody else then agrees and tries to bugger off, and Wade says, no, I'm not leaving. I'm going to get involved in the affairs of this world, and because I saw somebody die in my arms, which, is indeed fairly traumatic. I have not experienced that and would like not to. They... So everybody else is like, okay, fine, and they all leave the room, leaving Wade there alone. They come back in a couple of seconds later like, we can't leave her to do it all by herself. Damn it, woman. They then go to the cops to tell on Gomez and the crooked cops. Koki asks, so Koki posed during the viewing, why help the cops here? Seems to go against their entire ethos. Was I understanding your question right?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, not necessarily the Sliders ethos, where oftentimes they're very pro cop, but it goes against the show's ethos. Uh, you know, they don't necessarily know that the cops are the good guys, and oftentimes they are like actively working against the greater society until they're not. And I suppose the Sliders' relationship with the police are whatever it needs to be for the show to happen. But it was a weird direction to go. That's sort of like we're going to do the brave thing, and that's trust the legal establishment.
Yeah. Yeah. Sorry, I got a hair in my eye. So then they mention Julius and Ethel Rosenberg. I didn't actually look into these. I don't know if Koki did. Cue Ball called them the A-bomb spies. And they're like, A-bomb spies? They were the ones who assassinated President Kennedy. Which is a relevant point of divergence in this world. And that by turning Judge Nassau in, the one who killed the cop earlier, they would make the Rosenbergs look like jaywalkers. Group says that whatever Nassau had done must be horrible if they're talking about electrocuting him. And then they notice that there are crooked cops in the police station, or the crooked cops that they saw earlier were in the police station. I will interrupt slightly with the horrible if they're talking about electrocuting them. I guess there's a degree of, well, yes, but also, not really. Because people get the death penalty for fairly, or can get the death penalty for what I believe are fairly trivial things. And to some degree, I don't think any, but there is also a degree of, well, what he did is kind of horrible by the status, or by the, within the framework of this justice system, so-called, because he's trying to, as noted earlier, is trying to leak the Constitution, and they really do not want people to know that they have rights.
To answer your earlier question, Julius and Ethel Rosenberg were a couple of Jewish Americans born in New York City that were working for the USSR. They did some spy work for the USSR beyond just like nuclear weapon technology or nuclear weapon designs. Stuff about radar, sonar, jet propulsion. Just generally like, they grew up in the U.S., they were born in the U.S., grew up in the U.S., got involved in the sciences, and were leaking this information to the USSR.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okie doke.
They were killed before JFK was president in our timeline, but they were in their 30s when they were killed, so, if they weren't spies, then I guess it could be Soviet. I don't know why the USSR specifically would want to kill JFK. I guess he was raising tensions, and there was the whole Cuban Missile Crisis thing. So, yeah. I mean, Lee Harvey Oswald was a communist, so it could also be like ideological. Like even if it's not necessarily on command of the Soviet Union, they could have been communist and subsequently saw JFK's actions in Vietnam as just making him worthy of assassination.
True. I would also, to some degree, maybe push back against this. Not what you're saying. The talk of electrocuting. The sliders generally seem to have a pro or have an anti killing people sentiment, if at all possible. Um, so that they just go, huh, he must have done something bad if they're gonna off him, seems a little out of character to me.
Yeah, they're very pro-cop this episode, despite,
Their history.
having been knowing many of their worlds where the cops are objectively the bad guys.
Yeah. On I guess an interesting note, the only one who never seems to be pro cop this episode is Rembrandt, which prob he's the most I don't know the phrase paranoid of the cops, and it would make sense. He's black.
I don't remember what he said that was anti-cop.
No, he didn't say anything in the episode that I recall that is anti-cop. He just works. Yeah, he works for the opposition, which everybody does. But he's also the one who's more like we shouldn't get involved here, and when they're threatened, he's the one who immediately goes, nah, let's fuck off. So he's not anti-cop, he's just more like, out of all of the sliders, he's the most, in this episode, paranoid about them. Assuming I recall correctly. So Gomez, so it cuts to Gomez being arrested, and he's yelling that they should save Judge Nassau. He's being arrested for knowing that the sliders were in this place. Everybody else in the establishment as well is also being arrested. No reason to us really is given. It's just implied that, oh, people know that the sliders are here, so since they're working for us, feels like kind of thing, I'm not sure. But I can't remember what that means. But so they're worried about being arrested too as well because they're there, and they're like asking, because the people who they think are crooked cops at this moment are the ones involved in arresting people, and so they're like, who is gonna protect us from the police if the police start abusing their power? And they rush into a back room, which, is a fair question we probably should all be asking. If cops are doing illegal and or highly immoral, unethical actions, what's to stop them other than hoping?
Yeah.
So then they rush into the back room, and there's a bar there. I believe there's a bar there, and a guy talking about Gomez, and he gets off of his, I don't know whether it's solitaire or blackjack. Well, it wouldn't be blackjack. Solitaire. It's probably poker, I guess. and hands a chip that looks identical to the one that they were given to the bartender, and sliders determine that means it's like a CD-ROM.
Oh yeah, they have the same format. See, I guess I thought it might have been just like it looks like the film inside of a floppy disk, but yeah, they do say compact disc, so yeah, I'm assuming it's a CD-ROM. It's just hearing you say CD-ROM, it's like going, oh yeah.
Oh yeah, those did exist at one point in the far ancient past.
I was thinking further in the past than it was.
Yeah, I even remember using CD-ROMs.
I had Lego Island on a CD-ROM.
I
This is irrelevant and immaterial to everything.
yeah, I did not. We didn't have that much in the way of video games until I was significantly older, and the Xbox was released. No, not the Xbox, the GameCube. So the patron who was doing the poker was saying that it was a trap, and he's walking right into it, Judge Nassau. And then they do like a degree of lore dump. Judge Nassau is the judge of the California Supreme Court and is being persecuted and arrested for trying to acquit a guy the federal government wants guilty. He's the last of the constitutionalists, them free thinkers. Think things are better before martial law and the abridged Constitution, and before the Constitution was abridged. Martial law has been in place since the early 60s. It was called by J. Edgar Hoover, who's the stepfather of the country. I'd kind of like to pause there, because Nassau being acquitted or Nassau being persecuted for acquitting somebody the government wants guilty. It's not a one-for-one, but it seems maybe related to present social issues, like the extreme corruption within the court systems, such as the Supreme Court just arbitrarily deciding what is legal and what is not based on what helps the Republicans at this particular moment, such as making it so that minority racial groups don't really get much of a say in the political sphere, by suggesting that regions of the U.S. that are districts that are primarily of a racial minority group is inherently discriminatory against whites, and have basically re-legalized a variant of Jim Crow legislation.
Yeah, I mean, cronyism is very prevalent generally. Going with the whole, Judge Nassau wanted this person convicted. A lot of...
Acquitted. He wanted him acquitted.
Oh, what did I say?
Convicted.
Oh, my bad. There have been a lot of loyalty tests towards Trump specifically during his administration, and that seems to be the case
Yeah,
The
and
idea of you have to show your loyalty to the leader's sort of ideological convictions.
yeah, our world, Cash Patel, I believe the name is, as he's got issues over I think it's his drinking and his excess spending of government funds for his drinking and his partying. And he's suddenly gone into what's it called? I want to say protectionist mode. He's afraid he's going to get into trouble, so he's. I have seen multiple reports that he's pushing for polygraph tests and loyalty oaths from anybody who's working under him.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's
This
like,
isn't good.
yeah, nope, it ain't. Um, but so I would agree that all of this is absolutely horrible, and we can see parallels. Not obviously one for one, because that's not what a parallel is. That's just a line. Um, so they realize that they have a CD and a ROM, and they go to insert it into a computer, but they needed to find one. They go to Quinn and Wade's old place of work, Doppel Computers, and their old boss shows up and mentions that there's an embargo with Japan's. The computers that they have presently are all clones. It's not 100% clear what exactly that means, but Rembrandt then calls the boss over to distract him so the other people can do what they want. Trying to. He says he's looking for the spinning tops, and the guy is confused because the spinning tops don't exist in this world, and neither do rhythm and blues or the genre of rock and roll to.
We have reason to believe other music does exist. It's just all underground.
Yeah, I was about to say, or at the very least, it's suppressed. Oop, lost my spot. Wade and Cuba put the chip into the computer and reveal a document and go, "Wow, this is the U.S. Constitution." And then I don't know whether they turned the computer's screen off or it just went to sleep or what exactly happened, but it's still on the it's still on the computer. They didn't like delete it or anything. Um,
Yeah, it seems like they knowingly or unknowingly just saved it on there. Like, I mean, yes, a lot of these computers are just always on, but simply put, for you to have it in there after you take the disc out, it would have to be that they saved it.
Oop, too far in. And then this leads to the professor reading a book about J. Edgar Hoover. And he's quoting from it. He says, "Both Aristotle and Plato inveigh against the evils of democracy. Individual liberty is leading us down a path towards anarchy, rampant crime, godless amorality, and the breakdown of the family unit." If I recall, I think Aristotle didn't like democracy. Or wait, I just looked this up.
It was Plato that was the most anti-democracy, though Aristotle had a lot of non-democratic views.
Mm-hmm. Let's see if I can recently close it. Aristotle. Okay, so yeah, Aristotle. He wasn't like the biggest fan of democracy. He thought that democracy was better than a being a tyrant. Actually, where'd my history go? There was a really good chart I had seen on this specific topic. So he says that democracy is the rule of the many, but also that democracy is caused by rule of the poor, and that the poor would have unique advantages over the rich, and he opposed this as a system of governance on the basis that an economic class that was undeserving would have power. But he also opposed there being a single ruler, because that would entice being a tyrant. And if there were many rulers, or no, if there were a couple of rulers, they would be bought by the richest people and become an oligarchy. He, if my understanding is correct, he seemed to be most desirous of a democracy by our more closer to our understanding of the concept, but entirely within the middle class. The middle class are the individuals with political authority. So not the rich, but also screw the poor. And his system similarly was not like ours in that it wasn't there was an opposition to like a representative democracy. They more support the concept of a direct democracy, wherein everybody of the allowed social class gets the ability to be allowed to participate within.
Yeah, it's actually pretty remarkable that we haven't seen as much of a fuck the rich sort of thing that's emerged from our democratic process. Actually, I think that this would have surprised Aristotle to see how poor people are actually pretty okay voting for tax cuts for the rich.
Yeah, I think you'd probably go along the lines of, well, this is kind of what's expected. The rich are self-interested and the poor are stupid.
But yeah, in the case of Plato specifically, it's worth noting that, at least according to the stories, the Democratic Council voted that, what should we call it, Socrates was corrupting the youth and forced to drink poison. And
I believe hemlock, specifically.
yeah. And so, if my teacher were killed by democracy, I too would not be the biggest fan.
Yeah, I probably as well. So, I mean, I do understand why there are criticisms of democracy, and he did indeed have a number of criticisms about democracy, such as minorities being ruled by the will of the majority, and not allowing said groups the rights that they ought to have, such as universal education and health care. He thought that the purpose of a state was not to allow anybody to be wealthy, and so this is why the wealthy people should not be in charge of a government. But he also thought that the purpose of a state was not to advance the goals of equality or justice, which is why he didn't want poor people to have a say. He thought that the goals of society or a civilization was to advance, I don't remember the correct word, virtues, basically. He wanted people to live a good life, in the sense that their virtues are, or the virtues, whatever they might be in the case of virtue ethics, would be amplified.
Yeah, I haven't been looking at the chat. Well, regardless, yeah, the point is like the society has different sort of historiography and
Yeah.
everything.
So I shall continue then. So in this world, nobody has actually seen an unabridged version of the Constitution. I guess there might be some people who have seen an unabridged version, but there would be at least very few people have ever seen an unabridged version of the U.S. Constitution. Um, Most of the main body of the Constitution, as well as the entirety of the Bill of Rights, were expunged from public records after the Kennedy assassination of this world. Um, Wade and Rembrandt. So that ends with the biggest aspect of the lore drop. Um, Wade and Rembrandt go to the Top Hat nightclub, which is on the matchbook that Wade was given by both people who died. And so Rembrandt goes. I can't remember what he says, but he calls his money green, as like the slang term, moolah. But this is kind of silly because their money's blue. He's holding blue cash. This is probably just because it's Canadian, and they're supposed to be American, but it's still.
I I haven't thought about that. Now, granted, this club definitely has an over the board thing, but Remy brings that up specifically in the context of bribing someone. And there was also the purchase of alcohol. It is possible that Canadian money is used as a kind of contraband. This is me trying to make something that clearly was just an accident of circumstance into Lordville. But, like,
That's fine.
I
And
can
fun.
see that using a foreign currency in a setting where you plan on doing stuff that may be a bit legally questionable. That being said, the bar there clearly respected like the age limitations regarding alcohol. So
Yeah. This bar is also like, I want to say, clearly a front. So they'd probably be doing things more legally. One might even be able to say they are doing things extra legally.
right. But yes, the simple fact of the matter is they didn't have any American top money, and they were using Canadian money.
So they go in and they're like, wow, this is like a high school prom thing. Why is everybody so interested in getting into this shit? Obviously, it's because it's just a front. Alcohol consumption in this world is you have to be 27 to consume it. So they say that they're looking for Elsie, but are told that there's nobody there working there by that name. A woman from the very beginning who didn't really stand out, was just like painting her lips, looks in their direction, and this is even when I first watched it, so maybe this might just be a me thing. It seemed like a clear indication that she would become relevant later in the episode. Did that give off that impression to you, or is this just me being?
This is the woman with blonde curly hair, right?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, from the very start, I thought that she stood out as relevant because they like zoomed in on her even in the prior world where she had a beard. So the whole episode was kind of putting up to this context.
See, I didn't realize it with the beard. I thought that was just like an establishing shot to show, hey, look, this is how this world is different. But
Yeah, I mean,
that makes
they
sense.
can do two things.
Yeah, that's true. Um, TV shows are allowed to multitask. So they go to a park to express that it's unfortunate that they couldn't find anything. The cops are walking around carrying. I couldn't identify guns because I'm not a gun person. I had to ask another somebody I know, and they said that they were carrying around MP5 submachine guns, which again, I know very little about guns, but this seems a little excessive for police to be casually strolling about with in a random public park.
Yeah, this is a world where they have, fatal interactions over traffic accidents.
Yeah. Um. So Cuball asks the professor again about the kilt thing and how that plays into any of this. And the professor says that there was a rumor, a book he read once that seemed spurrilous, that Hoover was and his roommate were a cross-dresser. Um, but that maybe in this world they actually were. So they are still saying that in our world there's no proof for this, and it's probably bogus rumor, but at least in this world it might have been the case. Hoover was president for 22 years until his death because they didn't. I don't remember when did they install limitations on president. How many terms of president?
Before the point of divergence, it was in the 40s after when Truman was elected.
Mm-hmm. Um, So I could have just gotten rid of that with the way things are going presently. Our world, it just might be, hey, I'm issuing an executive order, no more Constitution, and everyone would go, oh, well, that sucks, but whatever. So then I looked it up to see what political party Hoover was. Not that this calls for much, but apparently he publicly declared himself to be an independent, but in private said that he was a lifelong Republican supporter, and this was I don't know. I thought it was an unexpected thing to have learned.
Yeah. I mean, it's clear that he was in favor of centralization and very much in favor of the FBI having expansion of powers. Though it's worth noting for the time period the Republicans may not have been established as the conservative party. And granted, this alternative, he has different values from our modern Republicans in that he wants men to wear skirts, possibly.
He wants to force people to follow his kink in particular,
Yeah,
which is
you know,
weird.
I'm I'm more inclined to say that they are kilts. I realize that in the other world I was just assuming that yes, this is actually gender reversing. That I understand that's the logic of the show, but I think that well, one, there are police units with ceremonial kilts, and while Edgar Hoover was of German descent, he was in the first Germany that had like Scottish imagery and rights. So I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't just like the uniform and wanted to become more standard. That being said, considering that there's a bit of a gender reversal in the other world, which is almost identical, I'm inclined to say that Arturo, what he's saying, is correct in universe.
Yeah. Um. Oh, so then they're starting to like, well, what is the Rock? Maybe it's Alcatraz, and um, our world, Alcatraz. They're like, Alcatraz hasn't been used in years. This seem weird. Although the Trump administration is trying to reopen it instead of, caring about how anything really taxpayer money is used. The fact that this is unreasonable, unfeasible, and unviable, possible violation of indigenous sovereignty rights and treaties signed with them, just generally inhumane as they practice as well. Um, but so somebody is walking past, and they ask him about Alcatraz in this world, and it's like, is it still open, or is it open for tourists? And he's like, oh yeah, it's one of the most active tourist locations in the country. And they're like, oh, so there's no political prisoners there? And he's like, no, no, there are definitely political prisoners there. MLK Jr., Bobby Kennedy, Sam Kinison, all of the great, notable, influential political prisoners are still there. So this is a tourist location and a place for political prisoners. I guess I'm not sure exactly how such a thing would work, but because I would be afraid of having contact with a political opposition that you believe is incredibly evil would just sympathize people towards them more than anything, but
Yeah, this society clearly has a different mindset. Where like free thinkers was treated as something like with scorn. It's the same thing with like public executions. I don't, to my knowledge, there wasn't like some massive revolt against the public execution that led to public executions ending. People are generally, if societies like, hey, this is justice being served, this is an important lesson for you. Some people will be like, okay, let me look and they'll like get the entertainment that we might get out of, I don't know, like a combat sport or heck, we have like cop shows and court shows nowadays. So it doesn't strike me as that unusual, to be honest.
yeah. I mean, it doesn't really strike me as unusual either if it was like execution, but since
Yeah,
people,
probably they're just there.
yeah, since
I'm assuming
people,
that there are restrictions on actually talking off topic talking.
Yeah, well, whether or not it's talking, I mean, talking would be the worst in for what I was suggesting, but just even seeing them doing mundane things humanizes them.
Hmm.
And
Yeah, they probably only see them in like specific controlled circumstances, huh?
yeah, so it's not that this isn't the case in this world. It's just that it's weird in this for this to be the case.
Yeah,
Uh,
I wonder if there's like, I mean, obviously there's going to be a performance aspect, but they can only appear in public to like, talk about how evil they were or whatever.
mhm. Um, so one of the people asked if they're skirt boys, and Arturo just yells in the middle of the public park with a whole bunch of cop around, "Do we look like secret police?" And this attracts the attention of the cops because Arturo's an idiot.
Yeah, I don't know how he keeps doing this. I mean, the plot demands it. That's the short answer. But
That's not the
he,
good answer, though.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Um. So then, the guy who originally asked the question runs away, and the other one says, "Pirate Radio, Radio Free America." Asked for Natalie at the Top Hat nightclub, and they're like, "We already went there, but I guess we'll do it again." Um, they go back. Natalie was the woman that we mentioned prior, the one who was painting her lips. Um, Cuba tells her NASA's being set up, and she tells him to follow her. Cops are also in the nightclub undercover. These are not the crooked cops, these are the actual cops. Um, this is just the terminology I've been using, so I'll continue with it. They go into the back of the nightclub. It's a rave. Um, the so-called crooked cops are the rave security, so they're clearly part of the underground. And this is part of the whole recontextualization of their experiences. Um, they say that the people at the radio say that they're going to read the U.S. Constitution on air, and then Judge Nassau will give himself up to the police. Um, but then a police raid happens at that exact moment, and they just begin shooting into the crowd wantonly, as would probably would it, I presume it would happen on our world as well if the cops believed there was this terrorist cell and they just called them a terrorist cell. They could just go in and just start shooting anybody in there indiscriminately and get away with it, whether it's legal or not.
Yeah, I'm gonna say within the U.S. there's legal issues with that, but I can't say it wouldn't happen.
There we go. Shooting line. So the sliders rush out the back and into a car, and they begin to flee. A cop jumps on the hood, but they successfully manage to escape, even with the cops shooting at them, because the sliders are really lucky because they're the main character. San Francisco is shown from a sky view. It looks very dark by comparison to how I think San Francisco looks. Granted, I'm not a San
I think
Franciscanologist.
is a curfew is in place.
Yeah, it was either that or due to their severe limitations on anything of outside influence. It could be like an energy embargo, and so they're having energy issues, so you're not allowed to use up excess, but that's also just me randomly thinking.
I think it can be both.
Yeah. Um, So the police slogan on their car is not to serve and protect, but to serve and enforce. Um, and it's shown when they're arresting Judge Nassau, um, which is an interesting kind of flip. It makes it more aggressively clear that this is an authoritarian government because it's not concerned about protecting people. It's concerned about enforcing legal or enforcing the law and what those in power have demanded.
If I had to drop one, I'd probably drop serve.
I mean, they're still serving. I guess they are technically still protecting, too. But I don't really know how to continue any portion of that conversation.
Yeah, you can keep going.
Um, and it's believed by Natalie that if the Constitution is released to the people, it'll spread like wildfire. And NASA just wanted his manifesto to be read. I don't know whether his manifesto was something unique or just the U.S. Constitution. It's kind of almost phrased like it's just the U.S. Constitution, but do you have thoughts?
That seems to have been it. And this is the first time this kind of thing has happened. If we recall the world where the U.S. is British, this also happens. Clearly, there's a lot of reference in the show for the U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights. That it has a freeing power to read it, and that's just part of the multiverse of sliders. There's like an amount of power imbued in the words of the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. Mostly the Bill of Rights they bring up, but
Yeah. So, they say that Gomez, the owner of the Chandler Hotel, was turned to the fascists and gave up Judge Nassau, so they can't trust him anymore. And the car didn't start when they were trying to back up. This feels like it means should have some symbolic connotations with it, but I couldn't think of anything.
sometimes this kind of thing just happens when they have like a show set up. They just have car problems with last moments. Famously, there was an episode of South Park that they were trapped in, or not South Park, Seinfeld. South Park doesn't use live action, so it doesn't matter. Seinfeld, that they were trapped in a parking lot the whole episode. And at the end, when they finally made it to their car, the car would not stop, and they decided to just keep that ending.
The car wouldn't start, or
Yeah, it wouldn't start.
okay,
Something like that.
yeah.
They tried to start the car and it didn't, and that was not scripted, but they're like, let's just keep it. This kind of stuff just happens.
Yeah.
And it was a funnier ending than what they were planning, where they drive out.
Yeah. Which was my other thought, but yeah, I just wanted to know if you had thought of any, or might have thought of a reason, but that's good enough as any. It's sometimes things happen and it adds to the realism.
Amount of dramatic tension. That's also possible.
True, they are right up near the police and making a whole bunch of noise. Oops, that's not what I wanted to do. So they Cut back to the bar. TV is talking about Nassau being arrested. By cutting back to the bar, we're talking to Arturo and Rembrandt, and the others will come in shortly. And that there's a war against the subversives, which is a term the show likes to use a lot. Um, doesn't really mean anything, but it is a good phrase. Um, Arturo and Remy are talking about the next slide, and Rembrandt says he's not going to leave without Wade and Quinn, and Arturo's like, neither will I. I resent that implication. We'll just have to wait for the next window of opportunity, which is interesting that it's one of the only times them waiting in a world ever comes up. It's usually just very passive, like in the instance that I don't come back, then you should slide, but and I'll be stuck here. But they never usually talk about possibly staying in another world, even if they don't like the world.
Yeah, I thought that was weird because, like, what window of opportunity? Like, they just have to make a sliding device. At least the implication so far has been that if you miss the slide, you're done.
You're
Why,
yeah, you're if you miss the slide, you're stuck there for 29 and a half years.
yeah, so, I honestly don't know what Arturo was talking about there, and it's kind of weird because so far, yes, they generally had the ethos of, hey, if we don't make it, slide without us because it's better than someone slide than no one. Because Gwen is still there. He made the sliding device, right?
Yeah,
But whatever. I don't want to think too hard about it.
you should think harder about it.
Right,
Um,
right.
so Quinn, Cuball, and Wade come back to the hotel, meet them. People are smoking inside, but that was apparently normal at the time that this was recorded. It's just I guess, an interesting thing of note now, and the fact that times have changed. Most people do not smoke inside. I don't think you're legally allowed to smoke inside most places. I guess there are probably some places you still can, and especially in some states, but I'm not familiar with any of those states and didn't think of looking this up prior. Um, Wade wants to change the world and has a copy of the Constitution. So Rembrandt goes to the police station and says they'll give up the Constitution disc. He quotes the Fifth Amendment to bolster his claim that he actually has it, or it's in his possession. He demands the pardoning and exoneration of Judge Nassau and conspirators and no future prosecutions against them, signed by President LaRouche. Get to him in a moment. I don't actually find this a viable thing, because they could. It seems very within the power of a federal government, especially a fascist federal government of the U.S., to just go, yeah, we promised that, but takesy backsies, and just decide to prosecute anyway, because what's anybody going to be able to do about it? They're the cops.
Yeah, yeah, it is a weird kind of deal. There's also the matter of they didn't have a computer on hand, so they could have just given them like an empty compact disc. And I was also thinking about, are you going to take a polygraph test to say that this is the only copy? They could have made a copy without telling Rembrandt. There's so much about this whole deal that was sort of weird.
Right, I guess that leads into another thing that I thought of at the time but didn't think of bringing up presently. Polygraphs are notoriously bad. They cannot detect lies. They can only detect if somebody is anxious, and you can be anxious for many reasons other than telling a lie, and it's even possible to not be anxious while telling a lie because you are just confident, that confident. Um, which is why polygraph tests in our world aren't admissible evidence in court.
You can't test if Rick Ashley is never gonna tell a lie and hurt us.
We just have to take his word for it. Um, so, for his statements and his attempts to defend the U.S. Constitution, the police call him un-American, which, in this instance and instances similar to it, you could view as a compliment. If this is what America is, then yeah, screw it. I would be glad to be un-American in such a system.
Wait. The cop that went up to Rembrandt and whispered that, wasn't that the cop that was secretly with the revolution? Maybe I'm misremembering.
No, we're still in the Rembrandt negotiating with
Yeah,
the
that's the
cops.
scene I'm talking about.
No, that's a different guy.
Okay, fair enough.
Oop, that's not what I wanted. I don't remember where it is. Oh, there it is. So they're like, well, we could just arrest you or torture you, or something vaguely similar to that. And he's like, but my friends have the Constitution on them, and if they don't hear from me in 15 minutes, it'll just be released on the internet to everybody. And do you really want to take that chance? One cop says to the other he's bluffing, but obviously they need to take this seriously, because if they don't, well, their whole social order, their whole position of power has been completely undone. They say they need to call Washington. Presumably they do. And they get authorization. They meet with the cops at an overpass, or yeah, on a bridge. Cops are late, but they do show up shortly. Then there's a philosophical question, which I might get to at the end because we might be able to have a prolonged discussion about it. But so the cops show up with 4 or 5 cars, at least that we see. There might be more. They also bring Judge Nassau. They send Nassau towards the Sliders, who Nassau wants to know why they did it. And they're like, we just thought we think we're doing what's best. They approach Wade. The police approach Wade and take the disc with the Constitution. They say that they're about to destroy the most important document in U.S. history. The police don't care. Destroying the Constitution for political gain is a well-tread fascist method and desire. It's again going back to present modern day politics. They're doing it now. They don't like the freedom of religion. They just want freedom of a single religion. That is to say, theirs. And then Christian would be like, "Oh, hooray! Christianity's finally the law of the land." But it'll inevitably end up that it's not their Christianity. It's a different version, and then a different subversion, and then on forever. But in our world, they'll always say that they're defending the Constitution while they're undoing everything democratic about society. In this one, they're just like, yeah, screw the Constitution. Sliders say that the truth will come out eventually. Cops threaten Cue Ball. Cue Ball kind of threatens them back, knowing that they're not going to be able to do anything because he's going to leave the world in a couple of minutes. Cops leave. The Sliders say goodbyes to Nassau, and that things might not be as hopeless as he thinks. Sliders then slide away. We cut to Doppel Computers, where they were previously, and looked up the Constitution. It's their computer store. Customer is looking at the computer and goes, "Hey, the computer's doing something weird." So the Cue Ball's old boss comes over and they begin to read the Constitution out loud. It's kind of left to the imagination how, but Constitution gets leaked and is transmitted across the entirety of the internet. I don't recall whether it was just the U.S., so it could be an intranet, but it could be the U.S. and Canada as well, which would just be shorthand for the world.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if it was a purely localized thing, considering, well, there are other aspects. This is a society that values control, and so they want to control what goes in, but clearly they don't have enough control to keep the Constitution from spreading. I don't know. Honestly, I was surprised that Quinn was thinking he could just start shit after the trade happens. What's to stop the cops from just opening fire and killing them all right then?
Goodwill.
Goodwill, yeah. Quinn is praised for that afterwards. Like, no, man, no.
Don't antagonize people who are, one, already, but two, in this world, already established to shoot first and don't ask questions.
Yeah. It was not a good idea. Could have been bad.
Yeah. One second, I need to look up something for my drawing. Okay. I got what I needed. So back to the question then that could lead to a potentially interesting discussion. 3 lines. They're debating whether they should give up the Constitution or not. One man's life for a social contract that could revitalize democracy. And so that's an argument for we should keep this and just leak it. Argument against that is ideas are great, but they're nothing without people to stand by them. And then in response to that, freedom and the concept is reborn with every generation, but only one generation gave us the U.S. Constitution. I feel like the last line is objectively true. There's literally no way to argue that more than one generation gave us the original U.S. Constitution. Now we have amendments to it and alterations, and those have happened over a prolonged period of time, but I think it would be unfair to say, well, that's what they meant, because it seems fairly obvious to me that's not what they mean. On the other hand, I also wouldn't agree. I would not agree that freedom is, or the concept of freedom is reborn with every generation. Generations are only as good as their as they're taught. Slavery was acceptable for, I have no idea, but an obscenely long generational period. And so I don't think freedom is reborn with every generation. Individuals can be like, man, I wish I wasn't a slave. But it takes specific social circumstances and a societal upbringing for the concept of freedom to be endorsed and tried to even be brought about. Um,
That's an interesting thought. I hadn't put that much thought into that line, but I think that the idea is as long as there are people, there's a chance that freedom will prevail, right? I think that's the general sentiment of what was meant.
Possibly.
But yeah, there's also the idea that there's a kind of magic to the Constitution specifically.
Yeah, I do like the statement like that freedom is or no, ideas are great, but they're nothing without people, and especially if you no longer have the broad idea anymore, such as the veneration of the U.S. Constitution. If you just obliterate the U.S. Constitution, that'll be out of the cultural zeitgeist entirely. Um, and you can have people arguing for similar concepts, but it wouldn't be the exact same ones. Some people can,
Yeah,
and then there's differences between what makes something freedom. Like the religious right in the U.S. at present argues that um, their freedom of religion endorses them to force their beliefs upon others because um, otherwise you're infringing their freedom of religion to or their freedom to practice their religion as they believe is most beneficial. And then you get into, I guess, the vague concept of competing freedoms. When one person's freedom violates another's, I would posit, obviously, that I subscribe more strongly to what's it called? The your freedom to swing your fist ends where my nose begins, and so like in this case, it's you have the practice to you have the freedom to practice your religion, but if you start making laws that inhibit my ability to exist or exist even comfortably, then your freedoms in these particular situations, to the least degree possible, should be rescinded.
I forgot what I was going to say. It probably wasn't important.
Sorry.
No. It's just, oh, actually, I think I do remember. And when making this statement, we also need to remember, like I said before, in the Sliders universe, the words, in of themselves, of the Constitution, have power. So, like, I think that the point is, even if this person like read the Constitution, and he didn't like write it down word for word exactly, then even if you put down all the same principles, it just wouldn't resonate with people. So the idea of the pursuit of freedom would still be present. Like, well, one, like you said, depending on someone's cultural circumstances, they might not pursue freedom. They might not like strive, at least not for the same in the same way. But also the big one is that, and to an extent, the sliders already know this. But the idea is the Constitution itself is sort of a unique document in sort of like the rules of this multiverse. So yeah, they made a decision,
Yeah.
and I can understand why there were some objections to that decision.
Yeah. Um, what was I thinking? I do not remember what I was thinking, so whatever. Um, so then, do you have any thoughts on whether you should sacrifice the life of, I guess there's two questions here. One, sacrifice the life of a random person, the exact individual we don't know. I'm just going to say, let's veil of ignorance this. For a document that has a theoretical potential to revitalize a democracy.
So, like, in the world that I exist in, I don't think the Constitution has this kind of power, especially if it's not. That's what I was thinking of this in response to. If it's not in the cultural zeitgeist, uh,
Yeah.
it's I don't think it would be that powerful a document, and people willing to fight for the Constitution or for the principles of the Constitution would ultimately be more important. And that's what the sliders decided on. So I agree with them. I would say if I knew I was in the sliders universe, and like I said, to an extent they know this because they wrote down the Bill of Rights for the British America world. Then it'd be like, okay, actually no, we need to get this out however it happens, because then there's going to be this inescapable tidal wave for freedom. But I'm not assuming magic in my decision, so I would do with this like the free the person. There's also the idea that what's more important to saving a life when you can, because you don't know what impact the people reading the Constitution will have, even if you do believe there's magic.
Yeah. So I guess maybe that answers the second alternate version of the question I had as well. What about this particular individual, Judge Nassau, who already has a unabridged copy of and knows the U.S. Constitution? Would it be okay to sacrifice him for a copy of it?
Yeah, I more or less answered that. I wouldn't sacrifice him, like not in the real world, but in a world where the word for word constitutional power has magic, I might consider it, even then I still might choose what the sliders chose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'd probably similar, but um. So I guess that leads to. Oh wait, no, I was gonna say LaRouche, the president of this world, is a figure or was a figure in our world, and he was confusing. He was a communist who later abandoned communism and went towards right wing anti Semitic politics. Um, but as I was trying to read his stuff, and I'm like, he doesn't seem like he fits into our left right spectrum at all. Um,
He definitely gives off the vibe of authoritarianism that the creators don't like, which is why he's the president.
yeah, he also what was the other? Oh, he also extremely hated the. So this relates back to a prior thing. He also hated machismo and thought that it made Puerto Rican men less fertile.
Interesting. I looked at his wiki. I didn't remember him having a commentary on like Latin American culture, but okay.
He apparently wrote a entire 54 or something page book on including this topic. It is mentioned in the citations for in his Wikipedia article.
Okay.
I didn't read all of it because fuck that guy, but
Yeah.
but but going on to I guess the next part of the thing, alternate history. What do you think this world's Puerto Rico would be like?
Well, you know, it feels similar to the other one where it's sort of like technically Puerto Rico's constitution was already in existence, but also considering who were primarily operating through the FBI, stuff could be enforced. And I guess with the rulership, his beliefs are, as you put it, it might be more harshly enforced than than it is in the U.S. Maybe the search thing isn't limited to just cops. Uh, though, you know, like I mentioned, the sort of authoritarian United States and FBI already kind of happened in Puerto Rico. I'm not saying it couldn't have been worse, but I'm just saying, like, the mechanisms to do all of this were already in place in Puerto Rico, and a lot of what, you know, the federal government wanted to do of that nature in Puerto Rico, they already did. So, you know, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's not just limited to police officers, but maybe also, you know, any sort of public official. I suppose we don't really see politicians on stage wearing skirts or pants, so we can't really say. But, you know, maybe also the fire department, maybe also, you know, bus drivers. We don't see enough of the sliders world to say this isn't the case in the United States, but yeah, just going off of what you said, while entertaining the idea that it's of course even more in Puerto Rico to try to combat machismo. And I'm not saying that Latin America doesn't have its own unique flavor of male chauvinism and sexism, but I'm kind of weirded out how it's brought up as this distinct and separate thing as often as it is. Maybe now, maybe I feel differently if I was a woman who lived in both cultures, but you know, from my perspective, it's just sort of like, yes, sexism exists. Um, and I would also even go further to say that Puerto Rico is compared to a lot of the U.S. Even further behind in terms of women's liberation. But yeah, I guess
Mm-hmm.
I don't have much to say about the unique flavor of the machismo in Puerto Rico as like
Mm,
distinct from sexism in the U.S. But
yeah.
again, this may be like privilege blindness on my part.
Yeah, I mean, I also don't know about the thing, and it'll probably take me several times asking about it to remember any of this. But that's just the way it goes sometimes.
Oh, to be clear, you haven't like
No, yeah,
lost
I know you
today.
weren't accusing me of being racist.
Other people also have brought up machismo as like this thing, and it's just sort of like, yeah, people are sexist. I don't know what more to say.
Yeah. Um. Crap, I thought I had another question about Puerto Rico in this world. Uh, oh well, I don't remember it. Puerto Rico is in this world. That's that much I know for sure.
Maybe it's Puerto Rico's non-existence that made J. Edgar Hoover so powerful.
The fact that they couldn't
Assassination of Kennedy by Soviet spies.
the fact that they couldn't vote in the U.S. election for the House of Representatives.
Yeah, thinking the island itself, but it is the idea that they have like someone there who has a voice but not a vote. It could have had an impact on U.S. history, but
Mm,
I guess since we are doing like an alternate history analysis, I mean, in this case, there's not a whole lot for me to do because they more or less spell it out that the Rosenbergs assassinate JFK, and this created a sort of paranoia that allowed the FBI to step in and put forward a much more, draconic, authoritarian society that abolished the Constitution and possibly enforced new gender expressions. Uh, now, oh yeah, and also musical culture is very different. That a lot of stuff that was already popular in the '60s is no longer accessible. So there's like some mass censorship, mass control of what comes in and out of the country. And you mentioned like the reason why there's so many people wanting to go in is because it's a front, and you know they're actually trying to get to the more wild party. I'd also like to suggest that maybe in this world, that is a pretty wild party, and that's like as wild as I can get legally. And so,
mm,
there's a secret illegal wilder party for the people who want to party more than is legal. But
mm. I did not think of that.
yeah, because record shops and Kurt Cobain's Christmas special. What are put out there within some of this world, right?
I guess that's true. I didn't really think of any of this.
But in terms of authoritarian takeovers of the United States, I already talked about the business plot. That was way over in the 30s. This is clearly, like I said, they more or less did my work for me.
Yeah.
So, what about Puerto Rico we already touched on?
Should they stay in this world to make a new sliding device?
Well, obviously they just antagonized the police, putting even more so than necessary, so if it wasn't planning on coming back,
Yeah.
I wouldn't.
I similarly would not. Prior to that, they didn't. They probably could have just laid low and done kind of whatever they felt like. But
maybe. This kind of goes into the other world where it's sort of like, this is an authoritarian society, even if it hasn't affected them negatively specifically. Uh,
yeah,
there's a non-zero chance that like certain components of the sliding device will just get them arrested.
true. I guess it would also,
Because
if there's a mass embargo on certain international trades, it could also make getting your hands on sliding or tech necessary for sliding to be all the more harder.
yeah, this is a big government anti-free society where people can't have their own recreational nuclear bombs. The government says no, only the military can have nukes.
Exactly.
I
Uh,
actually don't know what's necessary for a sliding device. I was thinking Back to the Future where they need plutonium. Uh, and when they're in the Marty McFly's in the 60s and telling the professor, like, can't you just make a new time machine? And he's like, I'm sure in the 1980s, plutonium is readily available at all sorts, but in the 60s, plutonium's kind of hard to come by.
um, what was I thinking? Granted, I guess it also is simple enough that Cue Ball was able to make the sliding device just in his basement without government contracts or uh, approved systems for the development thereof because he wasn't part of his science lab that he was going to school with. He was just like kind of doing this on his own. Uh,
Squid also has, like, ways around the law. And, like, there's an amount of criminality that he shows that I don't think would have been completely absent from him before the slide. Like, I'm not saying he did any like severe crimes to make the sliding device. I'm just saying it wouldn't surprise me if he did some illegal things to make the sliding device, which he was able to get away with in our world, but might not be able to get away with in this world.
mm-hmm.
But this is speculation on my part.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't seem like unfair speculation because he does engage in a lot of criminal activities. That seems kind of almost undeniable.
Yeah.
Granted, he doesn't seem like he goes to super extreme risks, and the tendency to commit criminal activities could be lessened on Earth Prime solely due to the fact that he thinks he's gonna have to live there forever.
Yeah. So ultimately, I can't say, but regardless, my assessment is do not stay. This is a bad world. There are definitely worse worlds out there, but this is probably in the lower half of worlds they could stay in.
Yeah,
And Zero being like, we'll get the next window. It's like, really?
they're like, we'll get the next win. And I'm like, I don't think so, bud. See ya. Um, so I don't think it's I think it's a bad world as well. They should definitely leave, especially after everything that they've done. If they did not do that, however, and they decided to just whatever the phrase is, like stay the course or whatever, I think they might have been able to be safe enough. Q with if we go with your idea that Q Ball has a criminal tendency already, then I think they
Well,
could
it's
definitely.
that illegal activities were necessary to make this final advice.
Yeah, if such is the case, I could see that being achieved sufficiently easy enough. It might be a little more difficult, but I would propose that he probably could still do whatever it is. Um, but either way, the next world probably is a better choice.
Mhm.
And if that's everything,